Greetings, howdy y'all. Ohio Gun Lawyer here, coming to you from munitionsgroup.com. Look us up at munitionsgroup.com. We are national practice, handles anything and everything regarding firearms, munitions, sporting goods, whatever it might be. We can even patent your products, license your products. We can help you buy a gun business. We can defend you from murder as well. We can do all that and then some. Just give us a call for a consultation if you have any questions. We're going to be diving into some questions that were asked today. And remember, we appreciate all the viewers. Please, please, please share these videos so we can get this information out to the gun community. We try our best to get as much information out as we can. We are going to be working on expanding the knowledge base into other states. I know this originally started out as just ohiogunlawyer.com. Once I partnered with Mr. Clay Cheshire in Atlanta, Georgia to launch a national practice at SHOT Show last year, we are affiliated now with attorneys in a variety of states around the country, and we wanted to start getting more and more information out for other viewers. But right now, we're going to talk about Ohio law again today with duty to notify an officer. Ohio is a minority state in the sense that we actually have to notify a law enforcement officer if we are armed and have a concealed handgun license. So this only applies to concealed handgun licensees, and it only applies to handguns. Okay, let's keep that in mind. It only applies if we are stopped by a law enforcement officer for a law enforcement purpose. So I have to be a licensee, I have to be armed, I have to be stopped, and it's got to be for a law enforcement purpose. Okay? It doesn't apply to those who do not have concealed carry licenses. It does not apply to those who do not have or do have concealed carry licenses with regards to long guns. Now, there's some good rules of thumb to keep yourself out of any type of charges or mishaps with law enforcement officers, because they're not always right, and oftentimes they're wrong on the law, especially gun law. So the first question I have, what if you were a passenger in a vehicle and you are armed? Would you need to notify? All right, well, let's look at our elements. Am I armed? Yes. Okay, do I have a concealed carry license? Yes. And am I stopped for a law enforcement purpose? And that's really the question. If I'm in my friend Curtis Hallstrom's car, he's the owner and videographer for us today of VSO Gun Channel. If I'm in his car and he gets stopped because he's just bobbing and weaving through the lanes of traffic on I-71, do I have to notify? Well, I'm armed. I have a concealed handgun license. The question becomes, am I stopped? And am I stopped for a law enforcement purpose? That's really going to be a fact-based question. Generally, my inkling, my gut tells me that I would not be the one that stopped. And even if I am stopped technically, was it for a law enforcement purpose? Potentially. Clearly, Curtis would be stopped. So I think you could argue either way. So I'm going to talk about my first good rule of thumb. Notify. Just notify. This gets me into an issue. Now I want to talk about constitutional rights. I'm sure all of us remember our civics class, and all of us have seen Law and Order at some time. What is read to the accused? I don't like using the word defendant, I like using the word accused. At the time they are arrested. Curtis, you know what it is? What are the rights called?
The Miranda rights.
The Miranda rights. It comes from a case years ago that established that these rights have to be read to the accused. One of those rights is a right called the Fifth Amendment, right against self-incrimination. So anytime the law forces or compels me to say anything, whether or not it's notifying them of a concealed carry license or not, it gives me as a defense attorney pause. And the reason it gives me pause is, let's say I'm driving drunk with a gun in the car. I get stopped and I notify. I've just now given them evidence that incriminates me to a felony, right? I'm forced to do that. So if I don't notify, though, I'm also committing a crime. So the law really puts me between a rock and a hard place. I do believe the law is potentially unconstitutional in this situation. As I said, we're a minority state that has this law, and I do think it'll change in the next 5 years. So hopefully we'll get some lobbying efforts done and get that taken care of. So I can't really advise you this. My statement that you should just notify as a good rule of thumb is a general statement. Obviously, the facts will specify on the ground as to whether or not you should do that. I can't give every view out there. None of this is legal advice. This is all just information, informational basis information. But just keep that in mind. All right, moving on. I always had this question, even as walking somewhere and stopping to talk to an officer about the weather. Must I notify for casual conversation? Nope. Law very clearly says you have to be stopped for a law enforcement purpose. If your neighbor is Sheriff Joe and I wake up in the morning and I say, hey, Sheriff Joe, I don't say, hey, Sheriff Joe, I have a gun. How are you this morning? That's not required. Casual conversation is not required. But depending on the type of conversation, just make a gut check. It might be a good rule of thumb to notify them if it's casual conversation with an officer you never talked to before. Again, it just depends on the facts and circumstances, but no, it is not legally required for casual conversation. Just picked up my first firearm yesterday and have been going through all the transportation laws and stay compliant. I do not have a CHL. When transporting to the range, can an empty magazine be with the firearm in the closed case, or does it need to be separate even if it's empty? Lastly, if pulled over, do I have to let the officer know that I have the firearm in the trunk? I'm not going to answer that quite yet. I want to go to the last question we have for the day and tie those together. I have an unloaded firearm, meaning I have a loaded, he says clip, I think he means magazine, as we all would know, in one pocket of my bag and the gun in the other pocket of my bag. I'm going to presume they have zippers or snaps or buckles on them. That means that I don't have to notify the officer that I have a firearm, correct? Especially since I haven't gotten my CCW yet. Okay. First part of that question was, yes, you can have unloaded magazines in the same compartment as a firearm because there's no ammunition in it. It's fine. What the law says, again, and I've covered this in many videos and I'll continue to cover it because it is confusing, you can have loaded magazines in the car now in Ohio with the firearm as long as the firearm and the loaded magazines are in a complete and separate enclosure. So if you have a range bag with multiple pockets and they provide complete and separate enclosure, you're good. My old website has this information. We're importing that over to munitionsgroup.com, but you can also check it out at ohiogunlawyer.com. The website is still up. Getting into the second part of the question, and then I'll end the video with that, and that comes down to if I am otherwise legally carrying a handgun that is unloaded as though I don't have a concealed carry, do I have to notify? No, law doesn't require it, and you should be very wary of notifying because it could incriminate you to a potential crime. I just don't know what the fact, if you're drinking, if you're not supposed to have a gun, you know, as a defendant or as an accused, you should be very wary of talking to the police officers. But let's say you do have a concealed handgun license and you have the gun unloaded, kept in a bag with complete and separate enclosure of the ammunition. Do I still have to notify? I mean, I have a handgun in the car. I think it really comes down to whether or not it's termed whether or not you're armed. And I don't think you would be considered under the law armed because you're carrying it as though you were not armed. Under the law, if I am not a concealed carry holder, that's how I can carry it. Therefore, even if I have a concealed carry license, if that's how I'm carrying my gun, I don't believe I have the duty to notify. However, again, I think good rule of thumb, always notify, even if I'm carrying in that manner. Again, thank you guys for bearing with me. I know that's very technical. Drop your comments below. Questions, answers, comments. If you want to ridicule me for my wonderful beard, please go right ahead. My beard is definitely better than Curtis's. Sorry, Curtis.
I had to trim mine. It's hot.
Mine keeps me cool. Maybe it's the red hair. But as always, remember to be safe out there and as always, carry on.